Again, my name is Rebecca Lammers. I'm a member of the Democrats Abroad Taxation Task Force. Democrats Abroad has advocated on behalf of our members for decades on issues of taxation, including FATCA reform and residency-based taxation. And sorry, I'm going to the agenda. So we will go through where we're in introductions, and then we'll get into Nathalie's main presentation. At the end, when I will let you know when you can submit the questions, I will also bring up some announcements from Democrats Abroad, and then we'll finish with getting through as many questions as possible at the end. So since the economic stimulus payments were first discussed, we have been, Democrats Abroad have been in contact with Treasury and the IRS, as well as advocates of Democrats Abroad in Congress, to ensure that Americans abroad are eligible and are able to easily access any financial relief made available to help Americans during the coronavirus pandemic. So with that said, I will read our disclaimer that our counsel have asked that we ensure you are aware. So Democrats Abroad cannot provide individual tax advice. Advice requires consideration of your individual circumstances and needs, none of which can be done on this webinar. We are not tax lawyers, accountants, or advisors. Please consult a professional tax advisor, accountant, return preparer when addressing your personal tax matters. Democrats Abroad does not endorse or recommend companies or individuals attending or hosting this webinar. The views expressed at this event are those of the respective individuals and companies, not Democrats Abroad. No liability is accepted by Democrats Abroad for the opinions expressed or for any errors or omissions expressed about matters of tax in any country, your financial planning, or your legal obligations. If you are in need of tax advice, you can consult the American Citizens Abroad Tax Return Preparer Directory to find an advisor or tax return preparer near you, or providing online services to meet your needs and budget, though buyers need always beware. So now that we have that formality out of the way, I'm going to hand it over to Nathalie. So take it away, Nathalie.
All righty, thank you. Well, to everyone's favorite topic, and mine as well, taxes. No, I'm just kidding. I know it's not the most interesting topic. I hope that you will enjoy this presentation. I will try my best to make everything as easy to understand as possible, right? I know the IRS doesn't always make that their #1 priority. I try to make it, a little bit fun, because I think taxes should be somewhat fun, and at least we're getting money back. So I think that's a nice change, right? But anyways, with that being started, let's dive right in. So who am I and why am I talking to you? I'm from California. I'm now based in Vienna, Austria. My background's in finance and information technology, and I'm specialized in US expat taxes. So just so you know, I'm also filing my own US expat taxes, so I understand the pain, right? I'm American as well. And I know that American taxes from abroad is tricky, which is why I created MyExpatTaxes. So we're the leading US tax software for expats. We're made specifically for US expats, helping US expats really get all the tax benefits they can get, as well as e-file, because I know a lot of people cannot e-file using US-based tax softwares and US-based tax firms. So that's really what MyExpatTaxes is about, and why I'm here to talk to you about all the stimulus payments, some expat tax 101s, and what to do depending on your situation. So as we get through this, just keep in mind, as Rebecca said, keep your questions for the end or add them in the Q&A box. If I don't get to your question, don't worry. At the very end, there's going to be a support email. So support@myexpattaxes.com. You're welcome to send us your questions. My team knows to be prepared. And also, if you have a very personal question, I would prefer you send that in an email rather than, obviously ask a very personal question in a very well-attended webinar. So anyways, with that, let's get started. A little bit about MyExpatTaxes, right? This is my little spiel right here. We'll help you file in 30 minutes or less. It's really a really easy platform to use, right? It's online. If you want to talk to a tax professional, you have that option as well. It starts at 149 euros. And, you can check us out. I've already said enough. Let's get to the real details. All right, so we will cover everything about this second payment. For any of you that wasn't in the first webinar I did earlier last year, this is the second payment. And if you're freaking out about, okay, I didn't even get the first payment, now there's a second payment, what do I do? Don't worry, that's the second topic, which is the Recovery Rebate Credit. So I'll answer that question right now. If you didn't get the first payment, if you didn't get the second payment, don't worry, on your 2020 tax return, you can back claim both of them. And we'll walk you through how to do that. But for anyone that feels like they lost out on money, don't feel that way. You can always file a 2020 tax return and you'll be able to get everything. So I'll get that out of the way. Otherwise, we'll go into payment logistics and again, tax season changes for this new tax season. I know we're in calendar year 2021. Remember that taxes are always for the year prior. So now we're in the 2020 tax season. So do you need to file? For those that haven't been filing, how do you get started? How do you get into compliance? And how do you claim these payments, right? And then also filing deadlines, because that's important to make sure that you get everything in time so that you don't miss out on anything. Perfect. So let's dive into it. This new relief package, it was enacted in December 2020 for the second round of stimulus payments. Things that you need to know as you're reading through information and you're getting information from the news, right? So Americans abroad, obviously that's us. We are Americans or US citizens that are living, working, retired outside of the US, right? So our main home is normally outside the US. Maybe we're back in the US here and there, or we're not at all, right? You may or may not be filing US taxes. We'll get into that. But it's really pretty much any American abroad, also people that are green card holders, you're eligible for what? For the economic impact payment, or known as the Recovery Rebate Credit. So this is the IRS official terms. You should know these because we all know them as the stimulus payments, right? That's kind of how the media portrays it. But if you're going to talk to the IRS and you're going to inquire about these payments, you're going to want to refer to it as, the official terms. So economic impact payment is basically stimulus payment. Recovery rebate credit is what you'll see on your 2020 tax return to get the refund. So if you're claiming it, not as a payment that's coming to you in your bank account right now, but you're claiming it on your 2020 tax return, that is what it is, right? So just so you don't get confused, it's all in the same bucket with different names. And the first round was $1,200 per taxpayer and $500 per qualifying dependent. The second round, which we're in, is $600 per taxpayer and $600 per qualifying dependent. There are talks about a third round, potentially more rounds afterwards. Obviously, nothing is official yet, so I won't comment on that. But, as more rounds hopefully do come out, they should always kind of have these same rules around them. So going further, what do you need in order to get this payment? The basic requirement is having a valid Social Security number. That's really the most basic requirement for it. There's a couple other things, such as you cannot be a dependent of another filer. So if you are, say a college student and you're being claimed on your parents' tax return as a dependent, or, you are being claimed on your children's tax returns because they are helping support you as you're retired, you're probably not going to be eligible for the payment, right? So you want to make sure that no one's claiming you as a dependent. And if you are, then unfortunately, you cannot get this payment. But we'll get more into it later. So let's go to the next slide. All right, timeline of payments. So there's two buckets of people in this call. There's the regular filers, right? And I know we all aspire to be regular filers because we all should be filing our US taxes every year. But regular filers will have gotten their stimulus payment between April 2020 to December 2020, right? That was the first one. So you should have already gotten that payment. And the second payment should be coming in already. So quite a handful of people already got it. The IRS made, I think, the bulk of payments on January 4th. So if you haven't checked your US bank account yet, probably check it. The money might already be sitting there. So payments should actually stop around January 15th, so in 2 days. So maybe they continue a bit more, but I think as of January 15th, if you don't see anything from that payment, you should be trying to back claim it on your 2020 tax return. So just an FYI. And when I talk about regular filers, it's people that are filing their tax return, but it's also for those that qualified for the non-filer portal, right? If you were in the first webinar about this, you would have known about that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the non-filer portal, this is not really relevant for you. It was essentially a portal that you could use because you didn't earn enough money to file a tax return. And if you used that portal before November 21st of last year, then you would have been in the system. But the IRS already closed down that portal. They are not going to reopen it. So again, if you didn't use it, forget about it. It doesn't really qualify for you. You'll need to file a 2020 tax return. This also applies to people that are getting federal benefits. So, the whole list is down there at the bottom of the screen. So if you're already getting federal benefits, then the IRS, of course, knows about you already. So they should be sending you over a payment. Just keep in mind that the stimulus payments are not going to non-US bank accounts. I know Social Security can go to a non-US bank account, but stimulus payments are only going to US bank accounts. So that's the first group of people, and that's what you should expect from stimulus payments. So if you're a regular filer, you should have probably already gotten the second payment. You don't need to do anything extra, right? On your 2020 tax return, there is nothing to back claim because you've already gotten the payment. Now, the next group of people are the late filers, or those that have never filed, right? What do you do? So the easiest answer for you is complete and e-file your 2020 tax return. That's it. On your 2020 tax return, you're going to be asked how much money you got from the first stimulus payment round and the second stimulus payment round. You're going to say 0, and then your tax return will calculate how much you can back claim. And then once you e-file it, then you'll get the refund either to a US bank account that you include on your tax return or to the address that you give the IRS. I say e-file because it's very important. The IRS is still very understaffed. And unfortunately, as an expat, like I said, a lot of times you cannot e-file your tax return because one or the other reasons, such as you're married to a non-US citizen and they don't have a social security number and ITIN. Try to stay away from those. Try to find a program that's going to let you e-file, because the IRS is still not processing paper returns at a very quick pace. So if you paper mail your 2020 tax return, it's going to be sitting in this giant pile, and maybe they'll get to it in the second half of this year, the first half of the next year. So just keep that in mind. The e-filing portal has not opened yet from the IRS. That usually opens around end of January, beginning of February. So stay tuned. And yeah, so basically you're going to be claiming that on your 2020 tax return as the recovery rebate credit, and refunds are normally made within 21 days. So if you e-file your 2020 tax return, you include a US bank account, you should get the funds within 21 days. That's generally how it goes. But yeah, go to the next slide. And for those that are, again, regular filers, this is how you track your payments, right? So if you're sitting here going, I did file, I don't really know if I got any payments, use the Get My Payment tool, right? Again, this slide deck will be shared. You can click on that link. You can just Google IRS Get My Payment tool. Of course, make sure you only use irs.gov sites and tools to avoid any spam or scam, spam, etc. But if you use the tool, if you're able to use it and get a status, keep in mind, not everybody can get a status. It's a little bit glitchy, especially for expats. But if you can get through, this is what it should look like. What happened with your payment 1? When did it get scheduled out? And to what bank account, right? And your payment 2, when is that scheduled, to what bank account? So if you can use the tool, that's what you'll see. And again, it's going to reflect the information that was on your 2019 tax return or what you put through the non-filer registration, etc. Now, if you cannot use the tool, or if you're thinking, hey, my address changed or my bank account changed, how do I change that information? We'll get into that, but you cannot use this tool to change it. So this is really just for you to look at the status. If you want to change something, easiest way is to file a 2020 tax return and e-file, because the IRS gets that information automatically. If you need to change your address, there is a slide at the very end of this deck that shows how you can change your address through phone. So keep that in mind, but the IRS phone lines are so busy right now, so it is kind of hard to get through. All right, you can go to the next slide. All right, it's the same rules, like I said, for round 1 as round 2. And I assume any round coming up, probably going to be the same rules too, but don't quote me on that. So the 3 checks. Do you have a valid social security number, right? If you have a valid social security number, you're pretty good to go. Does your spouse, if you're filing with a spouse, have a valid social security number? If they don't, they won't be eligible, but you, as you having a social security number, will make you eligible. And then again, are you claimed as a dependent? If you're claimed as a dependent, you cannot get the stimulus payments. And what's your income? So there is no minimum income requirement, right? So even if you earn $0, you're still eligible for the stimulus payments. But if you do earn more money, right, what the IRS considers a high earner, then your stimulus payment will be phased out. So it's going to be reduced by a certain percentage until it hits 0. So just keep that in mind. We'll go through what the income thresholds are in the later slide, but really those are the 3 checks. So if you pass these 3 checks, you should be getting the payment no matter where you live, where you work, even if you've never paid taxes to the US, as long as the IRS knows about you. And again, you pass these 3 checks, you should get the payment. So do you need to file taxes to be eligible? Yes, you do. At this point, if you did not use any of the non-filer portal tools or anything else last year, and you're just trying to catch up now, the only way to claim this is to file a 2020 tax return. That is it. So even if you've never filed, even if you don't have to file, if you want to get these payments, you will have to file a 2020 tax return to claim the credit. Awesome. Next slide. So do you need to file? I guess that's a bigger question. So I think as an expat, especially if you just moved abroad recently, or if you moved abroad a long time ago too, you're probably wondering, why do I need to file taxes when I don't work in the US? I don't earn any US income. You know, I have nothing to do with the US anymore, right? Of course, you still vote, right? But that has nothing to do with taxes. But other than voting, you don't have too much else to do with the US. You still have to file your taxes, right? And that's based on, of course, your income threshold. So if you don't meet the filing requirements, then you're in the clear unless you're trying to claim your payments. But you can check your passport. So I challenge all of you at one point, take out that dusty passport that no one has used because no one's been able to travel for a very long time, flip it to the back, and you will see right there, no matter where you work, where you live, you have to file your US taxes. So keeping in mind, again, there are filing requirements and thresholds. So you can look at that table. I won't read all of it out, but if your gross income is over the tax filing threshold from all sources, so that's US income, non-US income, then yes, you do have to legally file a tax return. And if the IRS somehow knows that you have been earning income and you don't file a tax return, what they do is essentially file a tax return for you without applying any credits or deductions. And it's not uncommon that one day you'll get a notice from the IRS saying you owe X amount of dollars because they filed a tax return on your behalf in the most unfavorable way possible. So try not to be in that position where you're getting a notice with a big fine, right? I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm just saying that they definitely have stepped up on their initiative of finding us expats. So I know last year that was one of the initiatives they said they were going to look into. And I can say from experience of our clients, many people have come to MyExpatTaxes with these notices saying, hey, we know that you had some income, so we created a tax return on your behalf, and now you owe $5,000, $10,000, etc. Obviously, once they file the tax return, we normally can clear all of those payments and all the penalties. But just if you think you need to file a tax return, it's a lot easier than getting a notice later and having to deal with the IRS. Alrighty, go to the next slide. So this is kind of a Q&A break, still a lot talking from me, but trying to get to your biggest questions, right? Before I load you in with a lot more information about income thresholds and all that. But filing requirements. So if you are only receiving Social Security benefits from both the US and your local country, do you need to file a tax return? Yes, right? If you're only receiving US Social Security benefits, you don't have to file a tax return. But if you're retired in another country and you receive a US Social Security benefits and then some pension income or other benefits from your local country, yes, you do have to file a tax return because that means you have additional income and you would normally need to use 8833 for your tax treaty benefit. And if you fail to report a tax treaty benefit on 8833, there is a penalty. So yes, you do need to file. The next big question we always get is, you have absolutely no US sourced income. Do you need to file? The answer is yes. Even if you earn not a single dollar from US sources and all of your money is from foreign sources, if you surpass the filing income thresholds from the last slide, you do have to file a tax return. Keep in mind that if you are married to a non-US citizen, right? I didn't touch on this too much, but if you're married to a non-US citizen, you're most likely filing as married filing separately. And they did not change it. The filing threshold for married filing separately is still $5. So if you earn more than $5 and you're married to a non-US citizen, probably have to file a tax return. I mean, that's a situation I'm in. It sounds ridiculous because if you earn more than a Starbucks drink, you have to file, but it is what it is. And it doesn't seem like they're changing it because this rule has been there since 2018. And on top of that, if you are self-employed, right? I know a lot of us have kind of picked up some side gigs as the pandemic came. If you earn more than $400 in net profit, you do need to file a tax return anyways, regardless of those filing income thresholds. Just keep that in mind, right? It's one of those, check every single condition, but honestly, most expats, if you're earning some money, you probably need to file your US taxes. I'm sorry, I just don't have a better answer for you. Filing back taxes. So if you're non-compliant and you haven't been filing, not necessarily because you're really trying not to file, you're trying to hide from the IRS, just because you didn't know you had to file or you didn't think that you had to file and now you're probably sitting in your seat kind of nervous, do not be nervous, right? A lot of people don't know that they have to file. This is why we're here to spread that education about it. You can go ahead and just file your back taxes through the streamlined filing compliance procedure. I'll get more into that into another slide. It's essentially the IRS amnesty program. So what you'll do is you'll have to paper mail your 2017 to 19 back taxes, 3 years. You do have to paper mail it. The IRS only allows people in the amnesty program to paper mail their return because an IRS agent actually checks through everything. Don't ask me why, but you can still e-file your current tax return. And like I said, that's the most important. So as long as you can e-file your 2020 tax return, you'll still get your stimulus payments in a timely manner. Alrighty, so to the next most common questions. My spouse is not a US citizen. They're filing jointly with me. And are they eligible for a stimulus payment? So it depends. Do they have a US Social Security number? If they do, yes. If your spouse only has an ITIN, right, then they're not eligible for their portion of the stimulus payments, right? But that doesn't mean you're not eligible. So luckily with the latest relief package, they actually changed the wording in there so that even if you're filing with someone that has an ITIN, you can still get your portion of the stimulus payment. So don't worry about that, but you probably have to back claim it on your 2020 tax return. So kids, if you have kids that are abroad with you or back in the States, can they get the IRS payment and how much is it going to be? Well, it depends. Do they have US Social Security numbers? If you have kids, right, that have US Social Security numbers, then you should think about two different things because it is based on age. So you'll have to find a little bit of a strategy here. If they're under 17, you should include them on your tax return for two reasons. One, because you will get an additional payment from the stimulus payments for them. So it's $500 in the first round, $600 in the second round, right? But actually what's more important is you probably qualify for the additional child tax credit. And so many expat families are not aware of the additional child tax credit, which is a shame. If you're earning, some earned income abroad, so salary, self-employment, and you're paying taxes to your resident country, which probably has a higher tax rate than the US, especially if you live in, the European Union or the UK, right, that has a higher income tax rate, then you should definitely look to claim the additional child tax credit, which is $1,400 per qualifying dependent. So this is on top of the stimulus payments. It's really interesting. We have a lot of folks coming in that have never filed their taxes. They're so terrified that the IRS will find them and, they'll get fines or whatever. They go through the streamlined filing compliance procedure with us. And because they have kids that are under 17 with US Social Security numbers, they actually get really big refunds, right? So this is a refund for every single year that you have kids. So keep that in mind, very important. Now, if your children are 17 or older, you probably should not claim them. So again, it all depends on strategy, because obviously if claiming a dependent helps lower your US income tax, you should do it. But if they don't, then try not to claim them, because that means that they can file their own 2020 tax return and look to claim the stimulus payments themselves, right? So again, a little strategy, but kind of my helpful tips for you. Now, if you have a child born in 2020, right, how are you going to make sure that you get that additional payment for them? So first, you have to make sure they have a valid US Social Security number. I know it's not easy right now because all of the consulates are pretty much closed, right? But try your best to make sure that they get a US Social Security number. The way you're going to do that is obviously contact your local US consulate, figure out what the process is, right? That process usually involves making sure that they have a US passport, being able to go in for an actual, in person to sign up. And depending on what your local consulate says, but try to get them a US Social Security number by the due date of your tax return, and then claim them on your tax return. All right, cool. That is kind of the most common questions. I hope I answered a lot of people's questions in just that, but if not, again, there's going to be an actual live Q&A break at the end. So we'll get through the questions that are in the Q&A box.
Maybe, Natalie, just to clarify, when you say a child tax credit, like a refund, does that mean they're actually getting cash from the IRS, or what does that mean exactly?
No, that's really like money, right? So if you have a child under 17 with a US Social Security number, and assuming that you don't need to use the foreign earned income exclusion and you can use, say, the foreign tax credit, you can get $1,400 back every single year that you qualify for that child. Cash. Or bank transfer or check.
Right. And so if someone has a child, so let's say there's someone who has two kids, they both have Social Security numbers, and then they also qualify for the economic stimulus payments. That's a pretty big chunk of money there.
That is a very big refund check. Yes, correct. It's a very, very big one. So do not miss out on this. If you have children that have Social Security numbers, you should claim them. If you have children that are, that can get Social Security numbers, you should get them for your children. I will say this, obviously it's your own personal choice. I know I've had a lot of people say, why would I subject my child to the US tax, regime with getting them a US Social Security number since we live abroad? I'm sorry to tell you, but because they're a US citizen, they're already subject to it, whether they have a Social Security number or not. So the act of getting them a Social Security number doesn't actually kind of determine if they have to file US taxes one day or not. It's just making their life a little bit easier as a US citizen, because we do have people that come in that, because they're a US citizen, they have to file taxes. And then they have to go and get a US Social Security number when they're 25, 30, 40, 50. Just get it while it's easy, and then also get a refund on top of it. Make life a little bit easier. Again, your own personal choice. It's not the easiest process, but it can be worth it because you can get a very big refund.
Yeah, I just wanted to point that out because I think it's not clear to people, and I had no idea that you could actually get the credit, and that would be actual money back when you file your return. And a lot of people still don't know about it. So it's something worth pointing out so that people are aware that that's something that they're eligible for if they have kids.
Definitely.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'll let you go ahead.
No, it's a good thing. And obviously, again, I'm talking from MyExpatTaxes. That is my company, but that's kind of what our tax software does, is it really looks for that specific refund. So a lot of people go in and get that refund. And, if you're unsure, you can just try out the tax software, answer the questions, and you'll see your estimated tax refund before you pay, right? And if you see that you get a refund, it's probably worth inquiring why and, figuring out a little bit more about it. So just a little tip there. So anyways, we can move forward to the next slide. All right, again, how much is the payment? How much are you going to be getting? just the stimulus payments, nothing to do with the additional child tax credit, right? So going back to just the stimulus payment, it is first round and second round respectively. So it is $1,200 for the first round, $600 for the second round for individuals. If you're filing jointly, times that by 2, because there's 2 people getting those amounts. And then an additional $500 or $600 per qualifying child that can be claimed as a dependent, right, is younger than 17, has a valid social security number, all of that, by the due date of your return, including filing extensions. So another pro tip, if you're now sitting here thinking, man, I need to get a social security number for my kid, and how am I going to get one so quickly, because obviously all the consulates are kind of shut down, file an extension. Go ahead and just file an extension ASAP. So for MyExpatTaxes, we'll be allowing filing extensions about 2 weeks from now or so, when they open up the IRS e-filing portal. File an extension until October 15th, because then that means that you have until October 15th to get them a US Social Security number, right? So you're giving yourself additional time. And then on top of that, you could even file for an extension to December 15th, but we'll get into that, when it happens. But just pro tip right now, if you're thinking about getting a US Social Security number and you haven't done it, just file the extension to give yourself more time. All right, you can go to the next slide. So when does it phase out? What is considered a high earner to the US? So I'm not going to read all the numbers to you. You obviously can see it on the screen. So figure out the one that corresponds to you. What I will tell you is that you can actually lower your adjusted gross income using a very common expat tax benefit called the foreign earned income exclusion. The foreign earned income exclusion, which I'll get to, in a later slide, essentially what it does is just subtract your foreign earned income, meaning, earned income is salary or self-employment that is earned physically abroad, right? It will subtract that, a certain amount, from your taxable US income. So that means that, say you are working for a company in the UK and you make about 100K in a year, right? If you use the foreign earned income exclusion and you can use it to its fullest extent, you would actually probably end up with a 0 AIG, which is adjusted gross income, and you'd be able to receive the full payment. Now, obviously, I need to tell you, is that necessarily fair, right? That you would be kind of lowering your adjusted gross income to get the stimulus payment when technically you are a high earner. Just something to throw out there, but obviously that is, so to say, a possibility and advantage for expats. So think about that, and the option is there for you if you want to claim your stimulus payments. There are ways to get your adjusted gross income down if you are a high earner. All right, so we can go to the next one. This is how to actually get the credit. So I'm talking about it, and I'm saying it's so easy. It really is, right? So basically, whoever you choose to do your taxes, or if you do it yourself, then you don't have really step 1 to do because you're not entering it in. But whatever you choose to do, basically you have to determine how much money did you get for the economic payment round 1, right? And how much you got for the second one. So you would know this because the IRS should have sent you a letter, right? They should have sent you a letter telling you how much you got, or you should see it in your bank account, right? But basically you would determine, did you get anything for payment 1 or 2? And then if you didn't get anything, you would put 0, or if you got, 1,000 or whatever, you'd put that amount. And then you would complete your 2020 taxes to calculate your adjusted gross income, right? So you're going to figure that out, and then you're going to be using the Recovery Rebate Credit worksheet. So that's kind of that snippet you see in point 2. There's a whole worksheet. If you're really interested, you could go into the new 2020 1040 instructions, and you would find the Recovery Rebate Credit worksheet. You could go in there and literally go line by line. I think it's 21 lines to go and figure out what is your refund. And then if you do qualify, you will see it on your form 1040. 1040 is the summary tax form. So if you think about a tax return, it's pretty much the cover sheet of, this is how much I made, this is how many credits I'm taking, this is the refund I should be getting, or this is the amount of tax I should owe. So you would see it in step 3 on your form 1040. you'll see on line 30, Recovery Rebate Credit, and it'll tell you how much you're getting as a refund. And then obviously you see right above that, since Rebecca pointed out, on line 28, you see Additional Child Tax Credit. So, you know, that's 2 lines above the Recovery Rebate Credit. So again, if you had that, you could combine it. And then you'll see, you know, everything kind of get added up and how much you'll get as a refund on line 35A. So that's really practically how you go ahead and claim it. So if you choose to do it yourself, that's the tip. Find the Recovery Rebate Credit worksheet, calculate it, attach it to your tax return. If you're going through a tax software or going through a tax professional, you better make sure that they ask you these questions about how much you got for your stimulus payments and that they are calculating it for you. And you will see on your 1040, you know, are you going to able to get any extra, or did you actually get the full amount that you were supposed to get, so you get 0 back, right? So that is the thing. If you already got your stimulus payments, you're not going to get any extra, right? This is really just for people that did not get their stimulus payments yet to back claim them. Alrighty, that's kind of step 1, 2, 3 to get there. Now, if you've never filed, it is a little bit more complicated, right? So you would pretty much have to go through the streamlined procedure. And that's, again, the US Tax Amnesty Program for Americans abroad. So it is nice. So say you've been living abroad, you never knew how you had to file taxes, and you haven't filed your US taxes in over 10 years or more. It's fine. You can use the streamlined procedure, and you only have to file 3 years of back taxes. So that for this year would be 2017 through 2019 of back taxes, plus 6 years of FBARs. If you don't know what FBARs are, that's another thing to be definitely very aware of, which is the Foreign Bank Account Report. I do have more information about that in upcoming slides. But essentially, you would have to complete that whole package in addition to your current year tax return and current year FBAR. So you would go ahead and finish up the streamlined procedure. That's step 1. You would e-file your 2020 tax return. So again, try to e-file it. If you're going to go through a certain tax software or a tax firm, just ask them ahead of time, right? Say, you know, do you think you can e-file my tax return? Because a lot of people can't. And I would hate for you to go through this process, pay someone, and then not be able to e-file your tax return. So just keep that in mind. There are specific instances that, you know, even MyExpatTaxes can't e-file, but we do try to let people know ahead of time. But anyways, keep that in mind. Prior years normally cannot be e-filed, and they have to be paper mailed, and this can be delayed. So just everything in there, but we do offer a very competitively priced streamlining package, right? So the prices are there. I know it seems like a lot, but it really is very low, I would say, to what normal tax firms are charging, just because we can do it in a more automated way through the tax software. But yeah, all the information is there for you. So again, I think, you know, that was a lot of the questions in the beginning. What if you've never filed taxes? This is the slide for you. This is exactly what you do. You go through the streamlining procedure, you complete your 2020 tax return. On your 2020 tax return, you'll be able to back claim the credits for the stimulus payments, and then you'll be caught up with the IRS, right? So you'll be caught up and you'll get your stimulus payments, and you can have a nice clear conscience about it. So, all right, let's continue onwards. Filing deadlines. So filing deadlines are a little interesting for expats, right? I think all of us know April 15th, right? If every TV show, late night show, whatever, talks about April 15th. So that is still the deadline for your 2020 tax return. Maybe the IRS will extend it again, because this past year they actually did extend the filing deadline and payment deadline to July 15th of 2020. But as of right now, the filing deadline for your 2020 tax return is still April 15th, 2021, if you live in the US, right? If you do not live in the US, which none of us technically should be living in the US because this is for Americans abroad, then your filing deadline is automatically June 15, 2021, without having to do anything extra, right? But if you do owe tax, you should still pay by April 15th to avoid any interest or additional fees. So that's why I say April 15th is still for payments. You can file an extension at any time once the e-filing portal from the IRS opens up to October 15th, 2021 with Form 4868. So again, most tax software should allow you to do this. Most tax firms should allow you to do this. You can go ahead and print out Form 4868 yourself and sign it and send it to the IRS. That also works, right? So there's so many different ways. Obviously, if you paper mail it, try to keep a copy for yourself just because they're not really processing paper mail at the moment. But this is important. Again, if you're trying to get a US Social Security for your child, get the extension. It's going to give you a lot more time to get your affairs in order. Now, if you have back taxes, obviously try to do it ASAP, try to go through the streamline procedure ASAP. If you owe tax, right, try to pay it off as soon as you can so you can avoid any more penalties or interest. You know, it's pretty much my advice to you, better late than never. So yeah, that's really kind of the main deadlines to know for this year. And now it's time for your questions. I really hope I was able to answer most of them, but I know there's probably some still out there. So do we want to go to the questions or do you want to continue on? I think.
So I was gonna do a little 5-minute spiel and then we would get into the questions afterwards.
Then just kidding.
Just so that
not going to the questions first. I will get through this next portion very fast because you can read it yourself. Now we can get through it.
I didn't realize that you wanted to do this next portion.
No worries, no worries.
Yeah, go ahead and do the last part and then we'll go into the Q&A at the end.
All right, challenge for me, go through this as fast as possible. I'm just kidding. This is really all for your information. Like I said, the slides are going to be available. This is just for your information to kind of navigate through the expat landscape. I know taxes are hard. I know you're probably looking for someone to do your taxes for you so you don't have the headache. I do think you should be informed about what is being filed on your behalf, right? So everyone should know their financial situation, what's happening. Here's an overview of the most important tax forms that you'll probably see in your tax return. If you are thinking that you could get the additional child tax credit because you have children that have US Social Security numbers under the age of 17, you should be looking for Form 8812, right? If you're thinking that you should exclude your income, you should be looking for Form 2555. So again, these are kind of just what forms you should be looking for. And if you see in your tax return, what do they do? What do they mean? Go to the next slide. These are the different expat tax benefits, right? I talked about it, the foreign earned income exclusion, the foreign tax credit, a tax treaty. This is for you to read at your leisure, right? But I'm sure you won't. Basically, again, foreign earned income exclusion is you basically just subtract your foreign earned income from your US taxable income. Foreign tax credit is you're using any tax that you pay in your local country, Germany, the UK, Australia, etc. You're using it as a dollar for dollar credit on your US taxes, right? So you shouldn't be double taxed. Really, the tax system is not set up that you would be double taxed. I know that there are certain situations where you can be double taxed. I'm aware of that, but it's pretty rare that a US expat will be double taxed on their income if they're using the expat tax benefits correctly. Then the next one is obviously a tax treaty. The US has tax treaties with quite a few countries, not all of them, but quite a few. And so if you're getting something like unemployment or Social Security from your local country and you're not really sure how to deal with that on a US tax return, look at the tax treaty or tell whoever's doing your taxes to look at the tax treaty, right? Because most of the time you can probably find a good way to handle that specific income with a tax treaty. We can go to the next slide. This is everything to know about FATCA, the FBAR, Form 8938, right? So again, I hinted at this. You are not just on the hook for a US tax return. If you have money in foreign bank accounts or financial accounts, you probably will need to file an FBAR and possibly Form 4838. There are penalties. They are big. I'm not going to scare you about them. Just be aware of what you may need to file. Obviously, if you use, MyExpatTaxes, we will pretty much inform you that you need to file them or guide you through it. Form 8938 will automatically pop up if you pass over those thresholds. But if you're using, a different tax software, the FBAR is usually not included. Or if you go with a different tax firm, make sure you talk about these topics, right? This is really so that you are able to talk to whoever's doing your taxes about what you need to make sure that you are not on the hook for any penalties. So yeah, and I know Democrats Abroad is really fighting for us so that we don't have to file these forms too much anymore, but you know, the fight is ongoing. So, all right. This is just a little tip on how to calculate your FBAR because it's a little bit complicated. You have to calculate the maximum account in each, the maximum value in each account. I will not really go through this. You can look at it. If you have questions, you can always email support@MyExpatTaxes, but just keep in mind the FBAR is not based on what's in your account on the last day, the average amount, it's based on the max amount. So if you only have one bank account in the UK and you never use it, but at one time your friend, or let's say your parents wired you $10,005 just as a present and you quickly took it out and used it, even if it hit that UK bank account for 1 second in the year, you need to file an FBAR because your max value was over the threshold of 10,000 US dollars. So just another pro tip, it's not about the average, it's not about the ending amount, it's about the max amount. So even if that amount was in your account for 1 second, that's the max account that the IRS and US Treasury wants to know about. All right, we can go to the next slide. And this is just, again, helpful tips. If you did move, look at this. This tells you exactly what to do. I won't go over it too much. We can go to the next slide. And this is one way to create a US bank account. So like I said, if you e-file, you should try to put a US bank account. It's going to be the easiest way to get your stimulus payments. So you don't have to go through the hassle of having a paper check in your local country, because most likely your local bank will not accept it and or will charge you ridiculous amounts of money to cash it. This is one way. This is not the only way. There's plenty of different ways. This is what we saw was the easiest way for expats that we talked to. But again, read the huge warning at the bottom. Even TransferWise did reject some US Treasury payments, right? Just at one point because there was too much going through TransferWise and they were scared of, you know, scam or fraud. But for most people, it worked quite well. Again, just an option out there. There are a lot of different ways to get a US bank account. Alrighty. So this is our support email. This is a voucher code. This is my last kind of marketing spiel for MyExpatTaxes, but I'm in the same boat as you. I have to file my US taxes. It's not easy. I tried to make it as easy and honestly as fun as possible. I know taxes isn't really fun. Maybe looking at me just ramble on for like this past hour has hopefully been a little bit enjoyable. And that's how I want you to feel about your taxes too. You know, I want you to understand what you're doing. I want you to get as much refunds as you can, because if we're going to have to file our taxes, if we're due a refund, you better believe we should get it. And just, you know, pardon the pun, it shouldn't be as taxing, right? But all right, I'll stop there. Rebecca, take it over. Let me drink some water, I would say.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I just wanted to introduce Julia, who's our chair of Democrats Abroad, just to say a few words. I'm gonna also talk a little bit more about our tax advocacy work, but now is the time to submit your questions. So for any questions you've been holding off on, please submit them. At the same time, if you don't have any questions and you look at the Q&A and you can see questions that you really want the answers to, vote on them. And we're literally going to start from the top and work our way down and go until the clock runs out. So make sure that you're liking or thumbing up all of the different questions that you want to hear from. And we're just going to hear from Julia now, and then we'll get back to the Q&A.
Well, thank you, Rebecca, and thank you so much, Natalie. That was really great, very thorough. And you know, every time I go through one of your seminars, I always come out going, if I can only remember that. But then I say, okay, I know where I can find that information, because we can't remember it all, but we can read it, and we can also get in touch with Natalie. So thank you, Natalie, for that. You know, thank you also, Rebecca, for asking me to come on and speak a little bit. One of the we are so delighted that you are here. And if you are not a member of Democrats Abroad, please consider joining us. You just go to democratsabroad.org/join and register. We will send you tax information if you're interested. We will definitely send you voting information if you're interested. And it's a great way to stay in touch and be part of this bigger community. We have a lot of interesting things coming up in the next few months. As you all know, now that we have won the Senate, we're going to have some really interesting opportunities for pushing forward interesting legislation. Biden's first 100 days are going to be really important moments for us all to make our voices heard. And we are going to have places on the website where you can send in your stories about taxation, immigration, healthcare. It's all going to be something that we are going to take your stories and take them to Congress and let them know about why they should be pushing legislation that works for us around the world. And also anything that's, it's great for our progressive allies to hear from us. Thank you also for everything you did in terms of voting. Of course, we're really proud of the fact that Americans abroad were a part of bringing home the wins across the United States, but particularly in Georgia and Arizona, where our votes covered the margin for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. That's an amazing thing. It's also why Warnock and Ossoff went to runoffs and why we now have the Senate. So I don't want to keep you guys long because I know you have lots of questions, but thank you again.
Thank you so much, Julia. It's always really good to hear about what's happening, because I think it's an understatement to say that we're living in probably one of the most interesting times in America's history right now. But that's not least to say the work that Democrats Abroad does for Americans abroad at large on our tax advocacy work. So I just wanted to kind of tell everyone a little bit about why we're hosting this webinar. I think all of you have realized whether you know that you need to file your taxes or not, it is extremely complicated. And this is one of the reasons that Democrats Abroad advocates for a switch to a residency-based tax system, which would bring America in line with the rest of the countries in the world, more or less. We also advocate for eliminating FATCA reporting of foreign accounts for Americans living abroad, and exemption for American business owners living abroad from the transition tax. And then on the Social Security side, we also advocate for the repeal of the windfall elimination provision, which reduces Social Security by up to 40%. And we have a lot more information available on our website. You can go to our Taxation Task Force blog on democratsabroad.org/taxation. And then in the last year, we actually hosted a very similar webinar to this back in April when when the first economic stimulus payment was made available. In addition to that, we've also written to the IRS and Treasury making recommendations to make sure that Americans abroad can easily access the stimulus aid. And we're constantly talking to US Congress and the Senate and the House on American abroad issues to make sure that they remember that we exist and that they need to write legislation that is going to benefit Americans regardless wherever they are in the world. And we've done a lot of tax webinars last year too. So all of these different kinds of things we're doing on an ongoing basis. And I know Julia already said, but we are always really excited to get any kind of volunteers. If you're not a member of Democrats Abroad, you should definitely sign up. It's free. You get on the mailing list, and then you get emails about all of our different kinds of currently only online events, and in the future we'll hopefully be going back to in-person events at some point too. Don't forget also that on Friday is actually Vote from Abroad Day, and this is the day that we're encouraging everyone who lives abroad to register to vote in US elections. And it's really super easy to register to vote on votefromabroad.org. Even though last year was the big presidential election year, there's still other elections going on which are really important this year that we need to elect Democrats to, like governor and state level kind of elections. So don't forget, it's always important to vote. Also, just as a reminder that this was a free webinar, but we were encouraging people to donate $10. If you felt like this webinar was valuable, please do go to the website and donate. We really, really appreciate it. It helps us be able to put on more of these kind of events as well. And then also volunteering. We have so many different volunteer opportunities around the world. It's really exciting. Go check out the volunteer positions that are available. We'd love for you to get involved. And again, if you want to find out more about our tax specific information, you can sign up for our tax mailing list, which is on democratsabroad.org/taxation. So with that, I think what we'll do, Brooke, do you want to kick us off with the top question on the Q&A? And we will work through as many as we can in the next, how long do we have? How long can you go for, Nathalie?
I would say we can give 15 minutes. I can also, I mean, it's up to you, Brooke. I can also just read, I see them in front of me. I can just read them and answer them really quickly.
Yeah, how about that? We'll go faster.
Okay. All right. Let's speed round questions. All right. What if you haven't filed a return with the IRS in many years? Streamline procedure, e-file your 2020 tax return. That slide is in there. So go ahead and refer back to that one. So that's done. What about the people that don't have a US bank account anymore? You can open up a TransferWise account. You can look at American Citizens Abroad. Their membership also allows you to open up a US bank account. You can, you know, look for other online bank options, or you can get a paper check, which is not that great, but still an option. Next one. Yeah, expats do have trouble accessing Get My Payment, the tool. At this point, if you cannot access it, forget it. File your 2020 tax return. If you don't believe you got the stimulus payments, just say 0. Obviously, if the IRS believes that you did get it, they just won't give you the full refund. But just file a 2020 tax return. Stop fiddling with Get My Payments tool. It's just not worth it anymore at this point. Right. So your daughter never received the first payment, hasn't been able to get any info from the IRS website. File 2020 tax return. Say that you didn't get the stimulus payments, back claim them on your 2020 tax return. Even if your daughter wouldn't normally file US taxes, she should go ahead and file a 2020 tax return. Make sure you do not claim her on your tax return. Otherwise, you're gonna eliminate her from getting the refund. Cool. You received the check. Oh, wait, it's changing. Okay, you receive the check as a physical check, and it should have gone to where your Social Security benefits are deposited. Yes, it should have, but the IRS is not depositing stimulus payments in a non-US bank account. So if you don't have a US bank account, they will not deposit it in your Netherlands bank account. So unfortunately, you will get a physical check. So if you want to change this, right, you can file a 2020 tax return and put US bank details on there if you have a US bank. If you don't, you know, you can try to get one. Otherwise, you're going to have to look for a way to cash it at a local bank there. You can try to ask friends and family that you trust back home to see if they can help cash a check for you. I know that is an option, right? But obviously it depends on the bank and the situation you have, but that's my advice to you. The stimulus payment is not taxable income on your US tax return. It depends on your local country. That rule really depends, but for your US tax return, the stimulus payments are not taxable income. Also, if you actually got too much of the stimulus payment, you do not have to repay it. That's another one I didn't talk about. But no, it is not considered taxable income for your US tax return. Which online program is the best for filing for Americans abroad? That's going to be MyExpatTaxes. Yeah, all right, trying to be funny there. But really, I do hope that you'll try MyExpatTaxes. We built it for you, honestly, for me as a US expat, but also for your situation. If you don't like it, always give us feedback why you didn't like it. But otherwise, you know, there's a bunch of other online programs. You can try all of those, but do try MyExpatTaxes.
I would say that the ones that I would not recommend are TurboTax or H&R Block. Both of those companies spend millions of dollars a year lobbying Congress in order to keep taxes complicated. So those companies are actually working against your interests. So I really strongly recommend that you do not use those. But at the beginning, we did share a link of the American Citizens Abroad Tax Preparer Directory. So you can actually search there if you want to find someone that you can physically go in an office and meet with, or something like that. So there's lots of different options out there.
Alrighty, so you're married to a non-US citizen. Is it better to file, okay. If your non-US citizen has a social security number, it's better to file married filing jointly. If your non-US citizen does not have a social security number or an ITIN, if you can qualify for head of household, use head of household. All right, I received a refund check for my 2019 taxes, live in Spain, don't have a US bank account. If your local bank accepts it, awesome, right? But do be warned that they'll probably charge you a lot. Otherwise, like I said, try to see if maybe someone back in the US that you trust can help deposit it for you. A couple options around there, but you just have to ask your local bank. You haven't filed US 2019 taxes yet. They're done, but you're waiting for e-filing to be open again. I filed every year, got your stimulus payment. Will I still be mailed my stimulus check since I pay? If they do not have your bank account information, you will be getting a paper check, right? They're actually not, so you already received the $1,200. Your $600 payment might already be a paper check going to you, right? What you can do is try to e-file your 2019 and 2020 taxes ASAP, right? And try to get in your US bank account details there. But at this point, it's most likely your $600 checks in the mail or going to be in the mail soon. There is no way to call the IRS and add US bank details at this point. But if anything, just wait for the IRS e-filing portal to be open again. Make sure US bank details are included on there, and maybe you'll be able to get in that you can get it as a bank deposit. Otherwise, what you could try is just file your 2020 taxes early. Say that you didn't get the second payment yet, and maybe you can kind of do a timing thing where they haven't sent out your $600 payment yet, but on your 2020 taxes, you claim it as a refund. Basically, try to e-file both of those as soon as possible. Cool. Thank you for the nice comment. Yes, if you don't have an online bank account, try TransferWise, try a couple different options. It's just going to make life a little bit easier. The IRS will accept 2019 taxes in late January. They will accept 2018, 2019, and 2020 e-filing, depending on the situation and the tax software you use or tax firm you use. But 2019 should be accepted via e-file in January. Our son, should he do?
Oh, could you read the question out so that
so
when
my son's
recording people know
right.
what you're answering? Yeah.
All right. Again, someone got a check. What do I do with the check? I'm sorry, again, you can either try to cash it locally, even if the bank in your local country does not cash. One, you can try to find someone in the US that you can endorse the check to, but there's really not too many options around a paper check. That's pretty much my answer to anyone asking about paper checks, and I will probably stop answering any more questions about paper checks. So if you have a paper check, ask your local bank if you can cash it. If they say no, try to see if you have some trusted person in the US that you can endorse the US check to that will cash it for you. I cannot guarantee that this will work, but you can try it, right? These are pretty much your two options.
Just in addition, there's been a number of people that were stuck and couldn't do either of those things. And they actually contacted Democrats Abroad, and we were able to help them. I actually had to refer a few people to their members of Congress because they weren't able to cash their check at any way in any form. So if you are really super stuck, I would definitely recommend that you email. I think it's on the last slide here. Yep, you can email our taxation task force email address, and we will be able to try to help you out one way or another.
Alrighty. So if your first stimulus payment did not include the payment for your dependent, even though it should have, file a 2020 tax return. Make sure you claim your dependent. You will get the missing funds via your 2020 tax return. So again, if you think that you're missing some of your stimulus payments, you can always back claim the missing portions on your 2020 tax return. If you did not get a stimulus payment at all, you can back claim them on your 2020 tax return. If you got too much of a stimulus payment, you will not have to repay that back on your 2020 tax return. So don't worry about that. Cool. So move. If you have, okay, someone has filed, they already moved, and they want to make sure they get their $600 payment because they don't have a US bank account. What you're going to do is refer to the slide I have in there about how to change your address with the IRS, because we are so happy to see that the IRS finally allows you to change your address via phone. That was not an option last year. That is an option this year. For anyone that is worried that the IRS does not know your current address, you can file a 2020 tax return. That's going to automatically go into the system, or you can call the IRS. Look for my slide about that in the slide deck. If you want to give the IRS your bank account and they don't have that and you want them to get it, file a 2020 tax return. That is the only option you have at this moment. You received the first payment. You did not have income. So this person received the first payment already, and they had filed a 2018 tax return. They did not file, or they didn't have income for 2019, so they did not file one. And if they file a 2020 tax return with no income, will you get the $600? Yes, even if you earn $0, you can file a 2020 tax return to back claim any missing stimulus payments. It's only limited for people that are high earners. If you have no income, you have full right to get these payments. I mean, honestly, you should be the one that gets these payments, right? So please go ahead and file your 2020 tax return if you need to back claim these payments. This person used the non-filer portal. They got the $1,200. Do you have to do anything for the $600? No, you don't. Just wait and see it hit your bank account. If it does not hit your bank account and you don't see it, say by the end of January, file a 2020 tax return to back claim it. Next question. I am married, filing separately with a non-US spouse. I have never claimed my kids because my husband is the main earner. Is this incorrect? Have I been missing out on the child tax credit? You can still claim your children because, I mean, you're still living, like both of you together are still taking care of your child. So even if you are not the major earner, you as a couple are still taking care of this child, you can still claim your dependents. So go ahead and, just go through MyExpatTaxes, go through the questionnaire. And if it's possible for you to claim your dependents, they will be added to your tax return. You'll be able to get the credits. You could also back claim them. So if anyone right now is feeling that they missed out on the additional child tax credit, you can just send us an email at support@myexpattaxes.com. We amend hundreds of tax returns to get people back their additional child tax credit refunds. So don't worry about that. You can still get your additional child tax credit refund for 2017, 18, and 19 at this moment. All right. Thank you for all the info. Is there a specific tax portal that expats, US citizens abroad can actually e-file? Yes, MyExpatTaxes. If you use MyExpatTaxes, you can most likely e-file. If you can't e-file, we will let you know ahead of time. It's very specific. People such as, maybe you have a foreign corporation or something like that and we don't support it. That might be an issue, but most expats can e-file via myexpattaxes.com. We are not a free service. I'm sorry about that, but we do try to price it as reasonable as possible. General question, how do I put down non-US children that don't have a social security number? I am sorry, but you cannot. If your child does not have a US social security number, they cannot be claimed as a dependent on your US tax return. You would have to go and get them a social security number. How do you find out the exchange rate to use my US tax return? The IRS publishes yearly average exchange rates. So you can just Google that, IRS yearly average exchange rates. 2020 has already been posted. Otherwise, in MyExpatTaxes, we do all the conversions for you. I think I'm running out of breath, so I will do 3 more, okay?
Okay.
I received my payment in May, but received nothing for my children. I had to look at the recovery rebate information and haven't been able to find out how to make their payments. Okay, so you have children and you have children. So anyone that was under 17, that is under 17 at the end of 2020, right? You should be able to get the credit, but if they're 17 or over. So you can't get the credit anymore. I don't know if that really answers it. Basically, in your situation, I don't know exactly the birthdays or anything around there. Try to go through My Expat Taxes, answer the questions, and we'll calculate it for you. Otherwise, you just have to go through that worksheet line by line and answer the questions, right? So basically, at the end of 2020, was your child a qualifying child per the IRS definitions, right? Under 17. If they turn 17 in that year, you probably cannot get a credit for them. Okay, 2 more. Regarding US and foreign taxes, do the stimulus payments have to be declared for the tax year in which they received or deposited? You do not have to declare your stimulus payments on your US tax return. It's not seen as taxable income. So don't worry about that. I don't know about your local country and that tax law. You'll have to inquire someone that can answer on behalf of that. And last question, I file every year, but what if you don't earn enough to pay US taxes? I'm under the threshold. Can I still claim? Of course, you can still claim the stimulus payments even if you don't end up paying taxes. Again, the stimulus payments are for all Americans abroad, even if you don't work or live in the US, even if you don't pay any US tax, we are Americans and we're eligible for American funds. So I am sorry, everyone else, I couldn't get to the questions. You can always email support@myexpattaxes.com. And I hope that this was good information, right? If it's not good information, do let me know as well so I can improve next time. Alrighty, I'm out of breath. Rebecca, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Natalie. I think this has been really, really helpful for lots and lots of people. So I guess I just wanted to wrap it up. So just to kind of finish, again, if you found this valuable, please do donate to democratsabroad.org/donate. So that we can continue to bring you more events like these for Americans around the world. And as well, if you want to get involved, all you have to do is sign up at democratsabroad.org/volunteer. And we'd love to have new people, first timers, everyone is welcome. So with that, I'm going to close off the webinar and thank you again for coming, everyone.
Happy New Year. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.